Where Does Food, the food history podcast where we podcast about mechanically processed food. I'm your host, Tim, and with me, as always, is your other host.
What's up, you guys? I'm Elle.
And today, we have a super special episode that Elle actually doesn't know anything about.
Yeah. I'm on the mystery trip as you guys are.
The episode title on our preamble, on our pre-production page, just says fast food scandals. And I have taken some liberty here with that. And I just kind of thought of something that I really wanted to talk about. And that is about the scandalous, scary pink slime.
No, Tim. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember pink slime, Elle?
Yes. How could I not remember?
Yes, pink slime. Elle, what do you know about pink slime? What's your knowledge on pink slime?
Really, the few things that trigger the pink slime is usually chicken nuggets, and then the infamous,
which is funny,
like the Jamie Oliver episode when he was trying to get the little kids to eat just like I think vegetables, and he was like, "This is what goes," and they were like, "Don't care." Yeah,
it is funny that you think of chicken nuggets when it is mostly attributed to hamburger.
I know.
It's actually mostly attributed to
Isn't that
beef
weird?
and not chicken. But Jamie Oliver, in the same vein, he did have an episode that was also about like pink slime and what they do to the beef or whatever. We'll talk about it, and I have my qualms. So this is going to be a wild episode. I am kind of the guy who constantly tells people to, like, enjoy
Yes, this is true.
what you have in front of you.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you walk into the supermarket and you have so many options and, like, the system's in place. I have mentioned that the system's in place. They have their issues, and they're not bulletproof. You know, food supply has its problems. But this is going to be an interesting episode because it's going to seem pretty scandalous. I mean, it is known as a scandal. Like it's
holding true to the name.
It's one of those things. Yeah, it's one of those things that it's got a lot to it, and I always recommend the show notes, but I recommend the show notes for this episode. Go read every article that I'm going to post. I'm actually going to post a link, Michael Moss's Pulitzer Prize article, because it's like he did like an 8 or 9 part series of just food safety in general, and he won a Pulitzer for it. And
fantastic.
It's wonderful work. So the amount of reading that I've done for this is not going to reflect in what ends up in this episode, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Not that it's not all good information, just that like we're on a time budget here. So I'm not going to like verbatim 9 fucking New York Times articles. So, it's pick and choose and stuff like that. So
that's the audiobook series later.
Let's talk about what pink slime is. So it's also known as, and officially really known as, lean finely textured beef, or LFTB, or finely textured beef, FTB, or boneless lean beef trimmings, BLBT. Which is too close to BLT, so we'll stick to the LFTB. And it is a meat byproduct used as a food additive to ground beef and beef-based processed meats. It can be used as a filler to reduce the overall fat content of ground beef. And just specifically what it is during the butchering process, they take the fat trimmings off, and it's got some muscle tissue in there, but it's like a lot of fat, mostly just like fat and gristle. This stuff previously was used for, and it's mentioned a lot. When I was researching this, it's just mentioned so much, like it's used for dog food, and like had been used for like animal food, and then like tallow, which it still gets used for tallow. That because I'll explain like how that works. So they take the fat trimmings, And while it does have some muscle tissue in there, it's just not enough to consider it ground beef as is. Ground beef can only have 30% fat in it to be considered ground beef, which is why you don't see anything less than like 70-30 when it comes to like your ground beef options. That's really the fattest it can be according to like USDA standards. And however, there is this like these scraps, this leftover that, can get used. And Eldon Roth, who is the CEO of Beef Products Incorporated,
sounds
BPI.
fake. Okay.
This podcast is going to be about BPI just as much as it is about LFTB. So get ready to hear BPI a lot. He set out to create a process to get to use the scraps functionally. And what you do with it is you simmer it at 100 degrees, and that helps separate the fat from the lean tissue. And then it gets put through a centrifuge, which, like a big one, and that separates the liquid fat from the lean tissue. And
that
then
sounds appetizing.
It gets yeah, and then it gets compressed and flash frozen, and then it gets put through a chamber where it gets sprayed with a gaseous ammonia treatment, and that gets rid of all of the bacteria, because that fatty tissue that is being cut off is specifically privy to E. coli and salmonella.
Okay.
More so than other cuts of beef. So that's why it gets this whole thing. The end result is a meat product that I've read ranges from 95 to 97% lean meat. That's what the end product is. And then the other fat gets sold as tallow. If you don't know what tallow is, it's literally just like beef fat. That's it. It's just a thing you use for cooking, things like that. So now we're gonna get into the scandal and all that stuff. But before we do that, let's just take a break. We need a break.
We need to decompress for a second.
Yeah, live with what you now know pink slime is.
Live with it.
which is a highly processed product.
They found a little bit of that pink slime.
Okay, welcome back. Let's start with the history. A lot of what I'm about to mention in this next portion, again, it is by Michael Moss of the New York Times. Like I said, he won a Pulitzer Prize for this work back in 2009. So a lot of this stuff is back, in the early aughts and right before the tens. And I will also say that most people remember pink slime from the 2012 ABC thing. We'll get to it. But before that, it was Michael Moss really breaking open the story on kind of beef and food safety. So here we go. In the 90s, the USDA Food Safety and Inspection Service, FSIS, they approved the use of that technology that creates the finely textured meat. And then in 94, there was a lot of concern over E. coli in beef. There was a lot of concern with beef in the 90s. You may remember mad cow disease.
Yes.
Which was a big thing in Europe, and actually not that big of a deal here. It was mostly a panic here. There was not actually a lot of mad cow
cases
in the States. Fun fact. So, but there was a lot of fear for it, and rightfully so. That is a big deal because mad cow, it just takes a long time for it to ever show anything. There's no cure, and then when it does show, it just kills you within a year. So it's
that's terrifying.
Yeah,
wow.
it was a big deal, and so the fear here, I don't know, partially well deserved, right? You're dealing with a lot of food processes and things like that. But either way, so there was just in general, there's a lot of health concerns about E. coli in beef, things like that. So this is when Eldon Roth began to work on the pH enhancement system, which is what the ammonia does, right? This is what that gaseous ammonia bath helps with. And then also in tandem with that, compressing and then rapidly freezing it to 28 degrees Fahrenheit within, I believe it's within 90 minutes they do this. So it's like incredibly quick. So it goes from
That's
100
so fast.
It goes from 100 degrees to 28 degrees in 90 minutes. He set up this whole thing to, again, get rid of bacteria, Salmonella and E. coli. However, it wasn't until 2001 when this kind of gets to Washington. The beef was studied showing that this treatment works, right? Like they did studies, BPI did studies, and then they sent it to Iowa State, and a professor there, granted, company sponsored, published a professional journal confirming the findings that BPI made. And,
a little convenient, but okay.
Yeah, and then Mr. Roth asserted even further that his product would kill pathogens in untreated meat when it was used as an ingredient in ground beef. So what he's claiming is that he is making a product that is so free, and it is meant to be mixed into other beef products, that when you mix it with those, it's going to then help them not develop bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli. And he said, given the technology, we firmly believe, this is a quote, that the two pathogens of major concern in raw ground beef, E. coli and Salmonella, are on the verge of elimination.
Wow, bold statement.
Bold statement. You can kind of see where this is going.
Freezing hot takes.
The FDA signed off on the use of ammonia, which might scare people. Again, it's ammonia.
Just a little bit.
Probably shouldn't be eating it. However, it is concluded safe as a processing agent in foods, and this product wasn't the first product to even do that. It was declared safe by limited consumption a while ago.
Wow.
I'm not here to give an opinion on that. I don't know. However, I haven't died from ammonia yet, so I think it's all right.
So yeah, that's a fair.
Yeah. So they come out and pretty much say the USDA Food Safety Inspection Service says that process eliminates E. coli to the same degree as if you cooked it in the product. And they decided it was so effective that in 2007, when the department began routine testing for meat used in hamburgers sold to the general populace, they exempted BPI from those exams. So...
No. Why?
Yeah. Yeah. And however, this ruling in 2001 that this is safe, we're good to use it, it's fine. It's good for human consumption. Like many things, there is some dissent within the organization. Carl Custer, who's a USDA microbiologist, he said that other scientists and himself were concerned that the department had approved the treated beef for sale without obtaining independent validation of the potential safety risk.
Yes.
Which is
absolutely.
true. It's
Smart
true.
guy.
They pretty much took two studies and they looked at it and said, yeah, send it. And then Gerald Zernstein, he called the processed beef pink slime in a 2002 email. So he's the one that coined the term back in 2002.
The term, yeah.
And it was an email to the colleagues that I do not consider the stuff to be ground beef, and I consider allowing it in ground beef to be a form of fraudulent labeling. He even goes on further to say that it should be listed in ingredients. So, yeah, not to do so is fraud. And like I said, this is true. The USDA just kind of accepts BPI's results, and there's some issues. So
interesting.
The issues.
I wish I could be more surprised about that, but I'm not.
Right. The issues. One of the early hurdles for BPI was actually the Agricultural Marketing Service, which is the USDA division that buys food for school lunches. So they cited complaints about odor coming from the product. In a 2002 memorandum, they had to determine if the addition of ammonia to the product is in the best interests to the AMS, Agricultural Marketing Service, from a quality standpoint. So they're just, from jump, they're already a little like, all right, like, are we really going to give this to children?
Right. Insane. Okay.
Yeah. But by the way, it ends up in school. It ends up being like cheap. it saves like $1.3 million a year cheap. Like,
Oh,
and when you're
my
talking
gosh.
about
Well,
public funding and stuff like that, money. But like that, they did have their concerns. And so it kind of came down to this point where they were trying to pretty much say, like, should this be like the ammonia, should it be listed as an ingredient in the product? And
yes.
Dennis R. Johnson, a top lawyer and lobbyist for the meat industry,
Perfect.
represented
Who
BPI on the question of whether ammonia should be listed as an ingredient, arguing that the government had just decided against requiring another company to list a chemical used in treating poultry.
No.
So
No. Why? This
So-
is frustrating.
So it doesn't get listed as an ingredient. It is simply just something that they use as a way to, get rid of bacteria, so they don't have to
Sure.
list it. In early 2003, officials in Georgia returned nearly 7,000 pounds of BPI products after cooks who were making a meatloaf for state prisoners detected a very strong odor of ammonia.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So Georgia officials assumed it was accidentally contaminated. They alerted the agriculture department. In their complaint, they noted that the level of ammonia in the beef was similar to levels found in contaminated incidences involving chicken and milk that had gotten school children sick. So,
That's unreal.
and here's the
I'm
thing.
glad they caught that.
Here's the thing. They didn't know that BPI used ammonia because it's not listed on their ingredients.
Right. How would they know?
So they get this stuff in, and it smells the way that BPI is. BPI knows it smells like that. They're sending it out. They know. But
Right, no.
one else knows. So they're like, whoa, this isn't good, guys. I don't know what this is. This is contaminated, so they send it back. BPI says the ammonia doesn't pose any danger and would dilute when the beef was mixed with other beef, like it's supposed to be, right? Like, again, they're making a product that's meant to be mixed in with other beef products. So they're claiming, the ammonia's fine, it'll dilute. And the USDA
It doesn't dilute.
just accepts it. They just are like, yeah, BPI,
Oh
we
my
accept our
gosh.
conclusion. But yeah, other customers complained about the smell as well. So a little bit about how much ammonia is in like beef naturally. Untreated beef, it contains, typically it's a 6 on the pH scale, which is near rainwater and milk, just for an idea.
Okay. That is a good reference actually. Okay.
So BPI had a study that the one that got the approval from the USDA made their meat. It raised their meat pH level to a 10, which
Oh my gosh.
it's well
Almost
beyond
double.
the range of most foods. This is way high. But there's a 2003 study from the company that has issues surrounding the palatability of a pH 9.5 product. Just, again, there's that smell that people are talking about. So soon after getting that initial approval and having some of those complaints, the company decided that they were going to make a less alkaline version of the beef. So
How nice of them. Okay.
yeah, so BPI acknowledges in an email exchange that it was making a lower pH version, but it did not specify the level or when it began selling it. So no one knows
There's the kicker.
what their proprietary pH blend is. and
That's terrifying.
what got them approved is now no longer the process in action.
Doubly terrifying.
So, in August of 2008, the school lunch program suspended the use of BPI due to a detection of a salmonella outbreak. More importantly, 6 days before that, there was a batch that had an E. coli outbreak in it as well. Thankfully,
shit.
none of those, neither batch, made it anywhere around the children. The company wrote in a letter that its effort to combat the ammonia aroma might have reduced the alkalinity below the initial target levels. It said it was taking steps to ensure that the alkalinity remained elevated. So the New York Times did some third-party testing, and at this time in history, they found some samples of the product to have a pH as low as 7.75, which is not much higher than the 6 that beef is already naturally at. And again, the product that we're talking about is very susceptible to salmonella and E. coli. BPI provided the Times with new research that the company said showed that that E. coli and Salmonella were undetectable at a pH level of 8.5. So functionally, they're saying that, like, that's the number they're going for, is 8.5. That's the pH level they're getting to. And that their studies show that Salmonella and E. coli don't exist at that level. So the agriculture department did not learn that BPI was using lower levels of ammonia until October of 2008.
How?
A month and a half after.
How?
And it was only because of the New York Times.
And the third-party testing.
They sent, literally, they were inquiring, like, just doing their job as journalists. They were inquiring about the pH levels and stuff like that. And that's when the agriculture department found out that BPI had changed their process.
That's so stupid.
Fun.
That's mind-boggling to me that's how they found that out.
And another thing, the USDA is split up, right? We've already talked a bit about how, like, the division that's, like, handling school lunches is acting independently of other parts of the USDA. So the main, like, USDA, the main people were not notified of the suspension of school lunch officials. So that, like, 2008 incident, they weren't notified about that until way later, until like a month and a half later. That's when they found out about that section of the USDA, like, suspending BPI products. That's insane. So
I don't understand that.
Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack, he since directed that school lunch officials are to share information about their suspensions with the department's meat safety division.
Oh.
Yeah, being like, hey, we need to know, like, when you guys are doing things, we can't be two heads of the, same fucking monster. So conjoin.
So weird.
It's crazy. School lunch officials said that in some years, BPI testing results were actually worse than many of the program's 24 other suppliers, which used traditional meat processing methods. So from 2005 to 2009, BPI had a rate of 36 positive results for Salmonella per 1,000 tests, compared to a rate of 9 positive results per 1,000 tests for the other suppliers that were more traditional.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Again, these findings were not given to top department officials of the USDA until the New York Times presented it to them.
What?
And also a reminder that in 2007, they determined that BPI was so safe that they were not going to do regular auditing like they would for every other meat supplier.
This is, again, banana lands to me.
Thankfully, after that changed. After this, it changed. After a year, they were like, okay, well, we'll revoke that. they got to be thrown into the mix for our audits. So
it just took all of that.
So that's the issues, right? Like, we get this process in development, and it's just being and I don't. This is what's so difficult about this is I really, like, after doing all this reading, I really kind of walked away not with, like, a very strong opinion about, like, wow, look at the fucking corruption and all that, because I don't even necessarily know it's that. It just honestly feels like dumb people. It just sort of feels like, hey, listen, maybe there's more backdoor dealings. That was an angle that, literally researching this, the public opinion on pink slime is just very, very negative. And so when you Google this product, it just is a lot of going through the weeds of, like, holistic websites and blogs that are
okay.
So, like, there's just a plethora of, like, I don't want to say misinformation, but kind of conclusion jumping that maybe isn't fully
more
intact, right?
Than...
Like, of course, there are companies that lobby for certain legislation pieces that exist all over the place. That doesn't necessarily mean it's like an evil henchman, like, I'm going to ruin the world. You know what I mean? It's mainly just like, how can we not deal with red tape because it makes business easier? And I know it seems like I'm making an excuse for them. Like, we should think of safety first, always. I agree. We should think of safety first. always. But these people aren't, at least in my brain, it would be fucking stupid for them to to actively make a product that would kill their consumer base is dumb. Like, why would they?
Fair. That's a good point. Yeah.
Like, why would they do that? They wouldn't. To me, I don't think they're being disingenuous. I think they truly do believe that the process they have is truly, I mean, it is unique, it is proprietary, and it is, to them anyway, they truly, truly believe in it. However, when faced with the studies and the actual, like, breaking down of what's going on, it is very clear that they need to maybe back off the pedal a little bit and, like, do some fucking reassessing. like, the whole group maybe needs to, like, let's reassess what we're doing here. Again, coming from the guy who loves processed foods. Loves processed foods. So
To clarify.
So that was 2001 to like 2009, right? Like this is the New York Times big expose. Just like a lot of weird, like we're just getting approvals based off of third party like testing, but we're not like doing our own. And I hate to say this, but this is actually kind of common with the USDA and even the FDA to some extent because it costs money to do that stuff. Budgets exist in the world of the government, and unfortunately, they don't have limitless.
We're not too great at budgeting that.
This isn't an excuse. This is literally me pointing out a flaw in the system. I fully admit that this is an issue.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, this is. Like, it's a full-blown issue. Like, we need to ensure that these agencies are, one, not privy to lobbying and just corruption, and then, two, making sure that, you know, it's a no-brainer. If something is on the market that we're worried about or that we even have a fucking slight thing about, we should feel 100% confident that, hey, we're going to do our own testing, and we're not just going to rely on the company's testing. Not that companies are always going to do bad testing. It's just, if it's good testing, it will be duplicated, right? Like, that's the point.
Yes.
So that's that stretch. Now, 2012 and beyond. 2012 is really, this is when it opens up to the fucking zeitgeist. Because this is when I think all of us learned about it. Truly. Michael Moss, incredible work, probably reached plenty of people, but then it got on ABC in 2012.
And that,
it got on ABC, and they ran their expose about pink slime. So, Elle, I'm going to send you a 3-minute video of this first episode. You let me know when you're going to press play. I'm going to insert this audio for listeners, so we'll all listen to it together.
Okay, I'm about to watch it.
And now a startling ABC News investigation. A whistleblower has come forward to tell consumers about the ground beef a lot of us buy at the supermarket. Is it what we think it is, or is it padded with a filler the whistleblower calls pink slime? ABC's senior national correspondent Jim Avila set out to get answers.
Gerald Zernstein grinds his own hamburger these days. Why? Because this former USDA scientist, now whistleblower, knows that 70% of the ground beef we buy at the supermarket contains something he calls pink slime. Beef trimmings that were once used only in dog food and cooking oil, now sprayed with ammonia to make them safe to eat, and then added to most ground beef as a cheaper filler. It was Zernstein who, in a USDA memo, first coined the term pink slime, and is now coming forward to say he won't buy it.
It's economic fraud. It's not fresh ground beef. It's a substitute. It's a cheap substitute being added in.
Zernstein and his fellow USDA scientist Carl Custer both warned against using what the industry calls lean, finely textured beef, and is widely known now as pink slime. But their government bosses overruled them.
Why didn't you consider it beef?
Because it was a salvage product.
Leftovers?
Fat that had been heated at low temperature and the excess fat spun out.
Here's how it's done. Those waste trimmings are gathered, simmered at low heat to make it easier to separate fat from muscle, put in a centrifuge and spun to finish the separation. Next, the mixture is sent through pipes where it's sprayed with ammonia gas to kill bacteria. and finally compressed into bricks and flash frozen for shipment to meat packers and grocery stores where it's added to most ground beef. And it doesn't have to appear on the label, because over objections of its own scientists, USDA officials with links to the beef industry labeled pink slime meat.
The undersecretary said, it's pink, therefore it's meat.
ABC News has learned the woman who made the decision to okay the mix is former Undersecretary of Agriculture Joanne Smith, a call that led to hundreds of millions of dollars for Beef Products, Inc., the makers of pink slime. When Smith stepped down from USDA, BPI's principal supplier appointed her to the board of directors, where she made at least $1.2 million over 17 years. She did not return our calls for comment. BPI says it had nothing to do with her appointment, and the USDA says, while legal then, under current ethics rules, she could not have immediately joined that board. Jim Avila, ABC News, Washington.
And we know this raises so many questions. Jim Avila is going to stay on this case. And coming up.
So, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. It brought back this like very vivid, like visceral, like I remember people wouldn't eat like hamburgers ever. People would like stay away from hamburgers if like you go out fast food. Chicken was the move. And I feel like that's probably what started the revamp of, along with healthy, quote unquote, fast food, but revamped beef products.
Right.
But like, I don't know. I mean, they weren't saying anything that they hadn't said already, I guess. It's not like they had just come about this conclusion.
Right. And you know that after me just telling you what was already written about. This is what makes the 2012 expose so in like kind of odd, is that this is when it goes insane. But like it's already kind of information, and this is actually I'm not a debunker, and I'm not gonna spend a ton of time debunking ABC's stuff. Here's what I'll say: they ran an 11-part series. That was part 1.
Oh wow, okay.
So for weeks they were talking about pink slime on ABC. And 2012, social media was around, but we were in early days still. I consider that early days. We're hitting early to mid days. And this is one of the, like, this is a story that really resonated with social media. And it's not the first one, but it's a big one. It was a big one for Twitter. Like, Twitter really saw a lot of increase from, like, 2012 to, like, 2018. Especially the 2016 election. But like there was that increase, and it kind of started around 2012, 2013. And this was one of the stories that like really, Twitter really took hold of. You know, McDonald's was in the crossfire, Taco Bell was, Kroger, Walmart. So many.
Everywhere.
Yeah, so many grocers, they were all caught into the crossfire. I mean, the statistic on the video says 70% of all products used it. That is apparently the number that is accurate. I read that it was like a figure from BPI, so we're gonna roll with the 70%, roughly 70% of all products.
Yeah.
By 2012, we're using some sort of pink slime product, quote unquote. This was a big deal, and it was super damaging to BPI. They shut down 3 factories, laid off roughly 700 workers.
Wow.
They lost more than $400 million in sales. Lost tons of customers after like the first week of this story breaking.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so they sued ABC. After about a year, they sued ABC. They lost a lot of money. And this suit would include product disparagement, defamation, interference with business claims. They claimed that ABC News made nearly 200 false, misleading, and defamatory statements. So I actually do want to talk about a couple of them just off of that video alone. Impressive. I didn't watch the entire series. I just watched that video. And here's one thing. I was super, super interested about Joanne Smith because they mentioned that. And this is something that popped up a lot when you first research it. Again, the angle of like corruption, big angle. And like the idea is that Joanne Smith is the one who made this decision back in the 90s. It was like, yes, it's pink, so it's meat, which I actually
she's clearly set up. Yeah.
I actually couldn't find that quote, by the way. It might have happened, but I don't know. But apparently, and then she ends up on the board of BPI and makes $1.7 million or something like that. And then on the news segment, it says like that, the code of ethics now wouldn't even allow her to like hold the position.
Right. Be on the board. Yeah.
Right. So H. Russell Cross, former head of the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service, told Reuters that he, not Joanne, made the decision in mid-1993 that the lean, finely textured beef was beef, and therefore did not need to be labeled on the packages of ground beef. He claims that she had nothing to do with it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
so how does she... Okay.
And as I mentioned, it wasn't until 2001 that the company even secured USDA approval for its the ammonia use. And then according to a document that Reuters obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests, it shows that like they're not even using that ammonia process in the way that ABC's kind of angling, right? That this is what it's always been type stuff. It really wasn't that. It wasn't that until 2001. The initial process was approved in the 90s, but it wasn't that ammonia process until later. And another thing that they did that I'm going to pick at here as well, the term whistleblower is used incorrectly here.
Yes.
Gerald Cernstein and
Carl Custer.
Yeah, they are not whistleblowers. Again, their dissent is very like open. They were open about
public.
it.
It's not.
Yeah. It was emailed. They had dissent immediately. And on top of that, his attorney at the time, because there was a suit going on, William Marler, he told Reuters that his client said a whistleblower, and a court affidavit from the retired scientist also says that ABC approached him to do the interview about BPI, not the other way around. So
they're not a whistleblower.
So not a whistleblower. ABC is
Yeah.
actively looking for him as an interviewee. He didn't come to them with like, hey, I got a bombshell for you. Because
I've got
again,
this news story for you.
This information has already been out. His dissent has already been said, and it's been published in the fucking Times. Like, the New York one, the big one. Like
the big one.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to act like BPI is totally guilt-free here, but this expose by ABC, just part 1, has immediate incorrect information or just slightly skewed information. Like,
yes, very leading.
That's already an issue. Like that's fucked up. That's bad journalism, and we shouldn't let that slide. Ultimately, the real issue with this stuff is that like filing a suit on those terms, it's hard, man. Like freedom of the freedom of the press, things like that. Defamation and stuff is already really hard to prove. I am not a lawyer, but if you actually a good resource, like go check out Legal Eagle. It's a channel on YouTube. Great information, just genuinely about kind of how hard it is to prove defamation and things like that. I believe he recently did one with the Fox News Tucker Carlson debacle in terms of like disinformation, things like that, and the voting machines, that whole thing.
Dominion,
and he kind of walks through, just like, granted that suit ended in a out of court, but in a big settlement. But he even mentioned how hard it would be for something that seems so obvious to actually be like
provable in court.
Yeah. But on June 28th, 2017, a lot of years later, ABC and BPI reached a settlement that ended the suit. The terms of settlement were not disclosed, but a Walt Disney earnings report indicated that the amount was paid of at least $177 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a lot, but not really. Because, again, I cannot...
Not compared to how much they lost.
I cannot express enough how big of a deal that this 11-part series was on the food industry as a whole. Several U.S. food manufacturers publicly stated that they did not use the product in their wares, including ConAgra Foods, Sara Lee, Kraft. Yeah, many meat retailers stated that they either did not use it or they would cease using it. A lot of fast food chains stopped using the product after the controversy. Yeah. Again, this all impacts BPI's bottom line, truly. And they stated that they had not used the product before. In April 2012, the Concord Monitor reported increased business in some small neighborhood markets where the product's use was less likely due to concerns from the consumers. So people were shopping at smaller markets to avoid it. Many grocery stores and supermarkets announced in March 2012 that they would no longer sell products containing the additive. And then some grocery companies and restaurants and school districts discontinued the sale and provision of beef containing the additive after the media reports. Yeah, the reports show that a year after the 2012 breakout story, the use of LFTB went from 70% to just 5% in the market.
That's absurd. That is insane turnaround.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Again, cannot state enough how big of an impact that story had. But listen, memories are short.
They are very short.
Slowly but surely, BPI, they started to get some customers back, and they actually started a campaign called Dude, It's Ground Beef.
No way.
And as of 2018, LFTB is now labeled as ground beef officially by the USDA.
No.
Not an additive, not as LFTB. It is full-blown known as ground beef.
No
officially.
way.
This happened after a 6-month audit process from the USDA that got the label change. BPI says it's because their process has continued to change and improve over the years, and that I don't necessarily doubt. Not that I think BPI is like some incredible company that's like super honest and awesome, just that like it's been a long time. It's been over 10 years. Like it would make sense, and even at that time it was an encroaching 10 years. It would make sense that, yeah, things have gotten a little bit better. The processes may be a little bit faster. Just overall, like it's probably a cleaner and more organized process. And, you know, in as much as there was close calls to the Salmonella and the E. coli outbreaks and things like that, there were actually never any outbreaks that led back to BPI specifically. I mean, foodborne outbreaks are really hard to track down anyway, like really hard to track down. But just specifically, like those things got caught before they even went to market because of their safety testing. Like they test an X amount of batches every, like, you know, so many that they do. Like it's a thing that they're trying to catch the mistakes they're making. Again, I'm not saying that the meat industry is some, you know, altruistic, kind, gentle force that's just looking out for us. But it makes sense for them to try and not cause recalls and flack on their business end. Why would they want...
That part doesn't make sense, yes.
Why would they want to infect a bunch of consumers to then have to shut down their company? Like, what's the purpose of that? There isn't one. It's a very short end game if that's the whole, if they're like evil and they don't care. So they do care. They just don't want the red tape that is personally, I believe, needed to ensure that things are keeping, you know, up to snuff. I will say that, again, I don't doubt that this has happened, but I really couldn't find anything about the changes. Again, there were some improvements just in general. I don't think it happened at this specific time, but there's improvements over how quickly they were able to get it frozen. And like, so there's like the technology's better and the equipment's better. The machinery's updated and better, but that's kind of, maybe that's it. Maybe that's all that really was needed to just overall make it a better process. There's actually a good article from Joe Fassler on The Counter, and again, I'll post it. He actually reached out to BPI to try and figure out what changed, and the only responses he kind of got were these boilerplate, like, spokesman kind of stuff. I'll just give one of them. He ends up getting like 3 or 4. I'll just give one of them, but just go like read the article and you'll kind of see. So this he reaches out, and this is the first response he gets. For over 30 years, BPI has continuously improving its expertise to deliver lean, wholesome, nutritious, and sustainable beef. As our capabilities continued to evolve and improve, we pursued more consumer-oriented means of delivering this value to our customers, and in doing so have created even better products. As part of that evolution, last year we engaged USDA to conduct a thorough review of our lean beef's labeling. After an extensive review, which included on-site evaluation of BPI's production process and the results of taste panels and consumer surveys provided by BPI, USDA concluded that our lean beef would be properly labeled as ground beef. That means nothing. That means nothing.
That was a fluff of a statement.
Yeah, it's just fluff. It's just like default response. Thanks for reaching out. Default response. Yeah, in the article, he goes on to say that, he gets some positive response after emailing back saying like, oh, you'll be able to talk to our like director of commerce or whatever. And then that ends up falling through. They just kind of ran around the goalpost a little bit before he ended up just publishing his article. So, it's a bit of a bummer, but like if that guy couldn't get it, then I'm not going to try and email BPI. So, yeah, maybe it is better just because of the stuff. And, again, I don't know the full extent of that, like, audit and what that is. It sounds extensive even from that boilerplate kind of response, but we don't have a very good history with the USDA and BPI so far. It's a lot of, like, USDA just being like, BPI is cool, man. So, who knows?
They passed the vibe check. It's fine.
Yeah, but that's it. That's Pink Slime in all of its glory. Like I said,
oh my gosh,
I super recommend checking out the show notes here. Just really awesome work done by the journalists that I pulled from. I mean, literally one of them won a Pulitzer for it. So
that's how you know it's quality.
Yeah, go check it out. And I also just want to give final thoughts, which is something we haven't really done for this season. But again, I've been kind of riding the line on this whole thing. I'm not coming down hard on any one side, and that may seem like chicken shit, but I think the real reason why is because, again, I know that lobbying happens. Like, I understand that there can be corruption, and I understand that things are privy to failing, and I know that our systems of food are not invulnerable. Like, they are super vulnerable, actually, incredibly so. But I just worry about the immediate and just really ultra reactive response of like, look how evil these guys are. Look at how corrupt the USDA is and the FDA. They're all just meat lobby people. They all just have ties in with all the meat connections, and nothing ever gets done. When in reality, just like, if you look at the arc of how safe food has become, and just and even the examples of
put it on that lens,
even the examples of the fact that this story was written in 2009, so things were exposed, right? Like, things got caught, and that's always my point. Again, if you look at time, it usually, right, when we have good processes in place, even if they're flawed, if they're good, they can kind of work themselves out, and we can keep making progress. And I think that's kind of what is the deal with this. Like, if you don't want to eat this shit, don't eat it. That's fine. Don't eat hot dogs. Don't eat fucking McDonald's, whatever. Don't eat it. I don't care. Like, who cares? I just personally, myself, I don't think this is some big story of corruption and like, I just pinpoints of system failure that we need to address, and I think in some ways has been addressed. I don't know the full process, but a 6-month process seems a hell of a lot longer than whatever the fuck happened in 2001. Where it was like...
Right, like 90 minutes.
Where it was like, oh, hey, we got 2 studies from them, and we're good. We're good.
That's it. Full send.
Send it. If the USDA is visiting this center and like auditing this whole process, it seems like it's a lot more thorough this time around. So I don't know. It seems,
it's true.
And to me anyway, it seems like it ended on a higher note. And again, I don't think like the people that are running BPI are like evil. Maybe a little like short-sighted and like company focused, but I don't think they're, outwardly trying to harm people. And something I haven't mentioned is, and this is kind of a perk, that this process actually uses more cow per cow.
Right, technically, yeah.
Like,
you're technically using more of the
product. like this is, I wish I put the numbers down because it did actually like state the numbers. I'm pretty sure it's a good chunk like
End to
in
end.
fraction wise like of how much of the cow it is. So like it actually does make us better in terms of that, in terms of like usage per cow.
Usage, yeah.
Saves us money on that end. Again, if you don't want to eat it, don't eat it. I get it. Who cares? But I personally, I don't know. Give a
Yeah.
shit.
I think, no, to that point, I think that's something kind of like as you were talking, I kind of came to the conclusion as well. It's like if people want to eat it, people are going to like let them eat it. But to that point, it's like just label it. That's the part that gets me.
Yeah.
Like just say what it is. Yeah. And
Yeah.
But
no,
to that
and,
point,
and that,
I mean,
that's something when I was reading all this stuff, I really like kept kind of coming back to myself. It's just like, fucking just label it, man. You look more guilty. I think that's what makes them look the most guilty.
yeah.
What makes them
It
look
is.
the most guilty is just like their fucking allergic reaction to like red tape. It's just like, oh, if we had to label that, we used ammonia. Oh, if we have to label it as this, it's like, just do it.
And I think you mentioned it earlier because, like, yes, like you might have some initial like shock in consumer behavior, but people have fucking goldfish size attention span. So it's like, yeah, after a while, I mean, you said it yourself, after a while, business partners started coming back. You know, they weren't as successful as they were beforehand, of course, but it didn't exactly like railroad them so much. Like they're obviously still in business. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
you know, and it truly is like if you eat Hot Pockets, if you look on the back of Hot Pockets, it straight up just tells you like, yeah, mechanically separated chicken, mechanically separated fucking beef or whatever. Like it tells you outright like, yo, we used chemicals to get all the meat in this fucking product.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's all that matters. That's it. Just put it down. And people are either going to go for it or not. Like, and I think that's the only thing. That's really the only hang up for me. It's just like, guys,
Yeah.
just fucking like, just label it. Just put it on the labels. If you're honest with the consumers, you're always going to have the group of people that like holistic, like don't do this, don't eat that. Like, look at what science is doing to God-given food. Like, you're always going to have that. Like, that noise is always going to live in the world. But like, if you're just honest with everyone else, the rest of us will just make the decision on a personal level, not even a hard conviction, just like a very baseline, like, I'm either going to consume it or not. Like, that's it. And so it's just, yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, that's the pink slime scandal. Elle, it's time. Do you have a
Tim.
wreck your beehole?
No. It's really simple, basic. It might actually been the last one, so it might be doubling up, but mine's going to be, it's starting to get a little colder outside. It's like 60 something degrees the other morning.
It was 67 degrees the other morning.
Taking the dog out for a walk, I was like, I need a long sleep. So go outside. It's starting to get cold. If the air quality's good around you.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Hang on. We got a few months before then. Hang on. Tim, what's yours?
So, my wreck your beehole is to be more appreciative. So,
That's a good one.
I'm going to go on a bit of a thing here. Classic Tim. I was at work the other day, and I was cleaning hot equipment, like the two grills and the oven and just greasy, gross shit. And, food. And
Food.
I had a really bad night of sleep. I was super fucking tired. And as I was cleaning and I was in a bad mood, I had a moment of realizing that at some point in my life, I am not going to be in that kitchen anymore. I am not going to clean that gear anymore. I will do that for the last time at some point. And I'm not going to know when it's the last time. Because you never do. You never know
Yep.
when something is your last time. So even bad things, bad, quote unquote, again, like there are limits to this. If I'm not
Yeah.
saying
Time
that if
out.
your
There are
house
limits.
blows up, you should be outside going, wow, that house, huh? Like, no, be upset if you want to be upset. But what I did is just like, I recognized that one, I was in a bad mood, and I recognized that I was kind of like staying in that mood because that's how it works. Like if you're in a bad mood, you can only stay in a bad mood if you want to be in a bad mood. It's just the way it is.
That's true.
And then the other thing was just like, yeah, that like even things that maybe aren't the most pleasant in my life, I look back on them with a sort of reverence. And I mean everything, but whether it was when my dad passed or some of the tougher times in my childhood, even like when I talk about that stuff, it's from a point of like almost pride. It's like this growth, this thing that I look at and I'm like I grew from that. And so even during bad things, you just take time, take a breath, take a moment and look and just be like, this could be the last time you're doing this thing. And even if that's good, like who wants to fucking clean grills and greasy food? No one. But like it means something. It means something that like you'll at one point in your life you're gonna look back and you're like, oh, I did that and I remember doing that.
That's
and it was
true.
so vivid and fond. And so doubly so if you're having a good time. Doubly do it if you're having a good time. If you're out hiking or if you're with next time you're having dinner with with friends or loved one or your spouse or whatever, just take a moment and think to yourself, there will be a last day of this. You won't know when it's going to be. So just like really fucking take it in. Just really fucking take it in.
I think it's a good one, Tim.
Yeah. When you wake up,
good rec.
do it when you wake up. You wake up next to someone, look over at them and realize one day you're not going to do that anymore. So just appreciate it. That's my rec. Appreciate it.
That's good. That's a good one.
All right. End of the episode now that I'm off my high horse. I'm off my fucking like... You know,
that was a good horse.
I'm becoming insufferable. So, guys, welcome to the end of the episode. This has been Where Does Food, man? This food history podcast that we make, and we don't really release as frequently as we should, but we try our best. You can follow us on Instagram. We're actually at Where Does Food. We'll post whenever we drop an episode over there. You can follow me on Threads and Instagram at Tim_N_Winston. Again, you follow me there, you'll one, get some of my insights and pictures of Winston, and two, when we drop an episode, I post it there. And you can follow Elle
on the Hellscape website, Twitter. Oh no, it's x.com. It sounds so bad now.
Yeah.
El Chapo, L3_ between the L and the Chapo.
You can find her on
That's
X.
so funny.
Formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah. Jeez. You say it like that.
Yeah, formerly known as Twitter. X. That's what he should have named it. It should have been that long, mouthy fucking thing.
That long name. Yes.
Yeah,
that would have been better.
Go to X, formerly known as Twitter.com. This is why Elon Musk sucks. He's not as creative as I am. Oh, so we have a website. Yeah, you can go to our website. It's a pretty cool one. It's shows.acast.com/wheredoesfood. On that website, we have a supporter button that you can support us with. Just throwing a little bit of money our way. You get episodes a day early when we release them, so that's pretty cool. Also, if you're hearing this music, we have a bud that we chat with, and he helps us make music sometimes, even though he didn't make the specific one. He's helped me in the past with it. His name is Austin Martin. Check out Meridian Sky on Spotify and Apple.
Check it out.
He released an album about fucking 3 or 4 weeks ago at this point, almost a month at this point.
Yeah.
Check him out. It's great stuff. So yeah, do that. Also, guys, please leave 5-star reviews or don't 5-star reviews. Just leave reviews. Just like whatever you think. Just leave them. Drop the review, and that helps tremendously. Also, word of mouth is a big deal, man. Take your words, put it in someone's mouth about the podcast.
I think that's how that works. Yes.
Yeah, go up to them, open their mouth, and then you say words into their mouth. That's what word of mouth means. So just do that. And they will for sure want to listen to this podcast. Just tell them if they like episodes about food history, great. Do they like people that get on high horses? Great. Do they like when weird characters come on every once in a while, sporadically, 5 seasons in?
3 for 3.
First time
3
ever?
for 3.
Great. They're into it. They'll love this podcast. So, just put it on and
Just throw it on there. It'll be
yeah,
good.
let people enjoy it. Either way, that's the end of the podcast, guys. Man, we are almost done with season 5. So yeah, get ready after this episode. Get ready for our next one, and that's going to be
Oh my
our
goodness.
season 5 finale. And then we're going to take a hiatus like we always do, but I'll discuss that more in the next episode about our hiatus and what that looks like and all that stuff. So yeah, stay tuned. Either way, see ya.